All right, everybody, welcome into Sports and Money, Kansas City Chiefs 2022 offseason. I am so excited to have you on board tonight. We're talking about the NFL draft. This is going to be a sloppy video. My last video that I did just for the Chiefs was Tyreek Hill, and that was very precision-based, very numbers-based, very surgeon-like, precise, connecting the dots. This is not going to be anything like that, okay? We are exploring the Kansas City Chiefs draft options. And they got a lot. The Chiefs, from an options standpoint, choices standpoint, Kansas City has a boatload of options that they can go with. Not only from the number of draft picks that they have, but from the quality of draft picks that they have, and also considering that while they do have some standout needs, they have a lot of parts of the roster covered that they don't have to worry about at all. So they're not chained to making certain decisions here, even though obviously there's going to be a wish list of things that they want. So I think the Chiefs have one of the more complex drafts coming up out of all the teams in the NFL. Even teams who have, even compared to teams who have two NFL first-round picks, some of those teams know exactly who they want at those spots, and other teams have so many needs. They don't care who they get. They just give us two good football players at those two first-round spots. The Chiefs have, I think, a very complicated draft coming up, and I expect them to be very active. I really do. I don't necessarily think they're just going to sit there at those picks, and we'll get more into that here in a minute. But excuse me, I think they're going to be very active in this NFL draft coming up. I think it's going to be very exciting if you're a Chiefs fan. And I will say this before I get into all the different options that Kansas City has. No matter what you think Kansas City's needs are, and I think for most of you it would be wide receiver, cover guys on defense, defensive backs. It would be edge rusher. And for some of us, not for all of us, maybe not even for most of us, but for some of us it would be left tackle, right tackle on the offensive line. I think those would be the headliners. But no matter what you determine of the Chiefs' needs, they're not going to come away from this draft with all of those needs filled. They're going to come away from this draft with some of those needs filled. And the important thing is to come away from this draft with guys who are going to stick it in the NFL and who are going to upgrade your roster. That's the important thing. And Kansas City is going to do that, but that's what you want to come away with. Almost no NFL team. It's extremely rare to have any NFL team, even forget after the draft, even all the way you go to the start of the season, every NFL team has holes on the roster that they're going to spend the entire season trying to cover up. Okay, it may be one major hole, it may be 3 or 4 starters that they're just kind of sort of, trudging through with. Every NFL team is going to walk away from this draft with needs that didn't get met. So that's not the grade of a good draft, because every NFL team, there's just no way to fill all of these needs with players who are going to be ready to go at the start of the next season or even halfway through next season with these draft picks, even as many as the Chiefs have, and they have a lot. And they may draft a guy for every single position they have a need at. That doesn't necessarily mean the need is filled. It just means they've made an attempt. Okay, so the important thing is, need or not, you come away from this draft with an upgraded roster, and Kansas City is set to do that. All right, so first thing I want to hit, though, is let's push aside all the strategy. Let's set aside for just a minute. Let's postpone the trading up or the trading down. Just live in fantasy for just a minute. On the big board, if Kansas City could get any one player from this draft, who would I like to see them get? And I get it. This is probably not going to happen. They're not going to trade all the way up to number 5 or number 4 and go after the dream guy that they might want. But if we could just set that aside for a second, reality, go off to the side for a second. On my big board, who are the guys that I absolutely love that I think would be awesome for the Kansas City Chiefs? This is this very, very short list of guys. Ikem Ekwonu, left tackle from NC State. Ekwonu can do it all and does it all very well. Ekwonu would be a perfect fit at tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs, left or right, either one. Evan Neal, left tackle from Alabama. Not as good a run blocker as Ekwonu from NC State, but I think a better pass blocker. Evan Neal would be a fantastic guy at tackle. Let's say we don't think tackle's a need. All right, well, Kayvon Thibodeaux, just the pure raw speed that Kayvon Thibodeaux has. there wouldn't be a lot of pressure on Thibodeaux stepping into a pretty good roster with a decent defense, with Chris Jones sitting there at defensive tackle. Thibodeaux's speed alone, even if he doesn't develop into the top guy that some teams would be hoping he would, but Kayvon Thibodeaux's speed alone on the edge, matched with Chris Jones there at defensive tackle, would be, I think, just a breathtaking combination, to be honest. Ahmad Gardner, cover guy from Cincinnati, just outstanding defensive back, cover guy, would really be fantastic here for Kansas City. And again, I realize that, there are certain organizations that just don't do that. The Steelers don't do that. The Packers don't do that. The Patriots don't do that. The Chiefs don't do that. So I understand we're living in dream world here, but just throwing it out there, all right? The Chiefs have enough draft ammunition to at least think about that, and that's the cool part here. I think I'm going to title this video, whenever I post it, Exploring Options, because the Chiefs have a ton of options. I started off the off-season video a month and a half ago now, a month ago, talking about how the Chiefs were kind of like being in a crowded elevator, a little awkward no matter what decision you made. It wasn't great. And that was going to include, without us knowing it, the Tyreek Hill decision. Lots of hard decisions that I don't really like, but you get here to draft time. Everything else is in the rearview mirror. Here's where Kansas City is, and they have a ton of options, up to and including trading all the way up to, say, number 5. The New York Giants have picks 5 and 7. If the Chiefs wanted to, and I don't think they will. I don't think they're going to be that aggressive. I don't think there's anybody up there in the top 5 that they think they can't live without. So I wouldn't expect that. But that's an option on the table that the Chiefs have that some other teams might not have. The Kansas City Chiefs have pick 29 and 30, as you know. They have pick 50. They have pick 62. They got 94, 103, and 121. They've got most, if not all, I think they've got all their draft picks from 2023 still available. If they wanted to, if there was a guy that they thought, man, this would be perfect, they could trade all the way up to number 5 with the New York Giants, and the Giants, I think, would be willing. How much would that cost? Hard to say for sure. It would probably cost the Chiefs pick 29 and 30 and maybe a first or second from next year. Very expensive. It would be an outrageous price. I don't know exactly if that's what it would cost, but it would cost somewhere in that ballpark for the Chiefs. But the point is this. They have the options. If they want to go all the way up to, say, pick number 5 with the Giants, who have 2 high first rounders and who might be open to a trade, and the Giants have so many holes in the roster that they might be willing to take, 2 firsts and a second, or 2 firsts and a third. I'm not trying to nail down the price point here, but the Chiefs have that, and that's important. They've got these options, and so even though they're probably not going to trade up to number 5, they got that. Everything is on the table for Kansas City, from a draft standpoint. Might be expensive, but everything that they might want to do, any player that they might want to go out and get, it's available to them. And that is partly a result of the Tyreek Hill trade, and it's partly a result of some pretty decent roster building that the Chiefs have done over the past 2 or 3 years, that they have these options. So what if they don't want to trade up to number 5? What if they want to trade up to the 14th spot? I think the Ravens have that, and I don't know if the Ravens would trade back, but let's say 13, 14, 15. What if they wanted to trade up to that? Hey, again, that's probably going to cost them maybe number 29 and 30. So they trade away picks 29 and 30, and they go soaring up to number 13, 14, 15. That's a ballpark idea of what that would cost. Again, that's expensive. Maybe instead of doing that, you trade up, you trade pick number 29 and your second and third rounder. So you still get number 30, and you lose a second, a third, and 29, and you go all the way up to, say, 13, 14, 15. If there's a guy right there that you really like, Kansas City can do that. They can do that and still have draft picks left over to work with. They've got the option to trade up. Let's say number 5 and 14, still too expensive. They don't want to do that. Let's go up to number 20. I think the Steelers have picked number 20, and maybe the Steelers don't want to trade out of it. Let's call it 19, 20, 21, somewhere in there. How much would that cost for Kansas City? Somewhere in the ballpark of their 29th or 30th pick, one or the other, and then also throw in maybe a second round pick. That might be enough to get them up to pick 19, 20, 21. So if they want to trade up, and again, Kansas City did that years ago for Patrick Mahomes. It worked out great. And for every team that trades down, trading down has always been kind of trendy. But keep in mind, for every team in the NFL that's ever traded down, there's also been a team that's traded up. It made sense for them at the time. Did it work out? History tells us. But Kansas City can trade up to any of these spots if they want to. They've got so many picks this year and next year as a result of the moves that they've made during this offseason. They've given themselves a ton of options, and options is great. If you're a smart organization like the Chiefs are, and you have Brett Veach and you have Andy Reid, and your decision making is pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Then options are good, and you're going to do well navigating your way through these options. Anytime you want to trade back, you can do that too. There will be teams, don't know who, there will be teams looking to trade up to the spots that you have, 29 and 30 in particular, maybe even pick number 50, but definitely at 29 and 30, someone will want to trade up and get back into the first round and get somebody. That's going to happen. So if they want to trade back, they can do that, and that is the beauty of it. They've got all this on the table, okay, along with a pretty good roster already in the clubhouse, okay? Pretty good roster, tons of draft picks, trade up, trade down, stay where you are, all these options. And that's one reason why I said, because of all these choices, all these options, the Chiefs do have one of the more complicated drafts coming up here. Maybe the most complicated because of it. Certainly, they've got a lot to sort out, a lot to pick from, and it's going to affect them in 22, but much more it's going to affect them in 23, 24, and beyond. Now, why would they want to trade up? Why would they want to trade back? Well, my opinion is this, and we'll go through some actual names here in a minute and some of the positions, but this is important stuff to consider. My opinion is there's some pretty decided breaks here in the draft where it's almost like the talent level kind of drops off all at once. If you want to think of it as a staircase, a step down kind of a thing. Me personally, again, we'll all see the draft differently. We'll all see individual players differently, and that's fine. I think once you get out of that top seven players, top 6, 7, 8 players, depending on who a team likes, I think once you step outside of that top 6 or 7, by the time you get to picks 8 and 9, I think, in my opinion, I think there's a decided step down in talent, in consistency. Maybe not a step down in terms of how good could this player be if they max it out, maybe not, but in terms of consistency and what we're seeing on film and what looks like this player is going to be, all pro level versus a couple Pro Bowls, I think there's a decided step down once you get out of those top 7 players. So if you're the Chiefs and you're looking to do a major talent upgrade at one spot, screw all the other spots for now. One spot, one talent upgrade at one position, you'd want to roll all the way up there in the top 7, and the Giants would be one of the more likely teams to be open to that kind of a trade. Again, we're looking at everything here, tossing this out on the table. That's one of the things. Again, I think there's another talent break somewhere around the top 25. And that is once you get past the top 7 guys and you're sorting through the next level of players, that next tier of talent, if you will, somewhere around pick number 25. And this is important. This is where we really start to look at what's good for the Chiefs and what isn't. I think somewhere around pick number 25, I think you see another step down in talent and or consistency. And what really starts to happen at right around pick 25, give or take, again, we're not all going to see the draft the same, and that's fine. Somewhere around pick number 25, there's starting to be a lot more questions about the guys available at 27, 28, specifically to the Chiefs, 29 and 30. And that's important. Again, Kansas City may not see this draft the same way. Andy Reid and Brett Veach, they may say, hey, we can't wait to pick at 29 and 30. Are you kidding me? There's going to be 5 guys there that we love. So they may see the draft in a completely different way from me, and since they get paid for it and I don't, that's fine. We'll go with whatever they think. But as I'm sitting here looking at this, somewhere around pick number 25, I think there's another step down, Maybe not so much in talent, but in consistency, in the number of question marks that seem to kind of surround those players, in the number of, I'm not totally sure this is the guy we wanted if we were picking at this position. I think there's a lot more of that 29 and 30. And so this is where we start to get into what would you do if you were the Chiefs. I think it's very possible. In fact, it's something I would do. If I'm sitting there at 29 and 30 like Kansas City is, I'm in the catbird seat. I can go up or down. I'm not going to keep both picks there at 29 and 30. I might keep one of them right there, but let's say we keep 29. I'm going to trade out of pick 30, and I'm either going to go up inside that top 25 somewhere, which wouldn't be too expensive if you moved up to say 24, 23, or I'm going to trade down into the early second round, which might mean pick number 35 or pick number 38. I'm not personally, this is just me, I'm not personally going to keep picks 29 and 30. I'm going to be active, and I'm either going to trade into what I think is a threshold up into that top 25, maybe pick number 20, 21, 22, something like that, or I'm going to slide back into the early second round at 35, 38, something like that. This is important again. To me, I think there's another break right around pick 45. Somewhere around, I mentioned the break at the top 7. There's another break threshold at pick number 25, somewhere in there. Somewhere around pick number 45 for me, and again, we'll all say this differently. Somewhere around there, I think there's another step down in terms of now I think we are talking about talent. I think the top 45 guys have a level of talent that starts to fade pretty quickly once you get to even pick number 50, which, by the way, that's where Kansas City's picking. They're picking at number 50, and they're picking at 62. And I feel like what you've got to pick from, what you're likely to have on the board at 50 and 62, I think is significantly different than what you might have at 40 or 45. They might say, well, that's obvious, Ben. That's true in every draft. Well, that is true in every draft. Picking at 29 and 30, the Chiefs are used to picking there. The Patriots are used to picking there. Totally get it. Yeah, got it. But if you can identify, and Kansas City did a marvelous job of this last year, fantastic job of this. You can criticize some of their draft picks. There's no room, no place to criticize their draft picks last year when they picked up Nick Bolton and Creed Humphrey right there in the, I think, early, mid-second round, right? That's about where they went, if memory serves. Kansas City slid back into the perfect spot and got both of those guys. For me this year, that's not going to work. It's going to be somewhere in the top 45 that Kansas City needs to be with say picks 50 and 62, especially pick 50. If you're sitting at 50, I don't like the guys sitting there at 50. Now, they can get a good player at 50. They can get a decent guy. But I think there's a significant talent and question mark drop-off at 50 that I don't think you see at 40. And I think it's an exponential factor there that we're looking at. So if I'm Kansas City, again, I hate to regurgitate all this, but just so I'm not being confusing, 29 and 30 is okay. Somebody's going to fall to me there that I like, but probably not two guys. So I'm going to take 29 or 30, and I want to either trade up into the top 25 or I'm going to slide back into that early second round. And then again, at pick number 50, maybe 62, but definitely pick 50. At pick 50, I'm probably going to try to trade up into maybe pick number 40. Wouldn't be too expensive. We're going to have to give up something? Sure, we're going to have to give up something, but it wouldn't be outrageous. And I think once you get up in there, we're going to go through these positions here, and we'll get to some real detail about why I think that. But that's what we're looking at. Top 7, top 25, top 45, Kansas City, 29 and 30. Keep one of those guys there, trade up or trade down. And the pick 50, I think definitely trade up, hopefully trade up into, say, the 40th spot, something like that. Pick 42, something like that. I think that's where I'm going. And Kansas City may do the complete opposite of that. They may be looking at this board and reading it completely different, but that's what I'm looking at in generic sense. All right, let's get real specific real fast. I know a lot of you can't wait. just can't wait to grab a wide receiver. So let's talk about wide receiver real quick. Not what Kansas City has on the roster, but let's look at what's available in the draft, say at 29 and 30. For me, picks 29 and 30 are not a great spot if you want the wide receiver. We did a mock draft here, me and three other football guys last week. We're going to do another one again. Some of you already saw it. We're going to do another one again about a week and a half before the draft and go through all this again. When we got to pick 29 and 30 for the Kansas City Chiefs, I wasn't thrilled with the wide receiver options. Now, George Pickens was available. I like George Pickens, but I think there are question marks with Pickens as well. He's big, he's physical, he's talented, he's got the attitude. I would be happy seeing him on the Chiefs. But at 29 and 30, there's also Jahan Dotson from Penn State. I like Dotson. I don't know that I love Dotson. The point is this. Sitting at 29 and 30 at the wide receiver position, all those top guys are gone. I think somewhere around pick 8 or 9, I think the wide receivers are going to start to click off the board. And I think my personal feeling is somewhere around pick 20. My personal feeling is somewhere around pick 20, I think the receivers that everybody wants, I think most of them are gone. I would kind of sort of be surprised if they are still hanging around by, say, pick 2022. And we're talking Chris Olave, we're talking Garrett Wilson, we're talking Jameson Williams, we're talking, and I'm blanking on the other guys right now, but we're talking those top 5 wide receivers. There's going to be a run on them starting somewhere around picks 8 or 9, I think. They're going to start to click off the board, and they're going to be gone somewhere by around pick 20 or 22. So if you're Kansas City and you like George Pickens or you like Jahan Dotson, you're fine at 29 and 30. One of those guys is going to be there, at least one of them. If, on the other hand, you're like, man, we need to draft a wide receiver to upgrade this position for the next 5 to 8 years to kind of sort of help replace the production that Tyreek Hill put out there, and you like one of those guys in the top 5, you're going to have to trade up into the top 17 or 18 to get the guy you want. Now, you may not be able to get Garrett Wilson. He might be gone. But if you're looking at Chris Olave, perhaps. If you're looking at Jameson Williams, maybe. If you're looking at any of the other guys that I'm completely blanking on right now, I'm sure you guys are screaming the name at me. But those top 5 wide receivers, if you want one of those, not going to be there at 29 or 30. No chance. Almost zero chance. So if you like Pickens or if you like Dotson, good chance they're probably going to be there at 29, 30. If you like one of the other guys and you really want to upgrade to that position, time to trade up. Okay. If on the other hand, and there's a very good chance of this, quite a few wide receivers farther down. If you like Christian Watson from North Dakota State, if you like Sky Moore from Western Michigan, that's the point at which you go, okay, I'm going to take pick 29 or 30, and I'm going to trade back to maybe number 35 or 38, where more than likely, I'm going to get to pick from either Christian Watson or Sky Moore. One or the other should still be there. Now, if you're stuck on Watson, just stay at 30 and go ahead and pick him. If you're stuck on Sky Moore, maybe that's a little early. Better to get the guy you want than to be worried about, oh, I got him at darn it, I got him at pick number 30 instead of pick number 38. Forget that. Get the guy you want if that's the guy you want, okay? Don't get too cute trying to trade back while somebody else drafts the guy that you wanted, okay? So 29 and 30, not the best spot to be at wide receiver. It's not horrible. You can get a wide receiver you like, but if there's a guy you want, trade up or go ahead and dial it back to the early second round. If there's 4 guys you still want, go ahead and dial it back to the early second round, all right? So that's wide receiver. We looked at Pickens, Dotson, Watson, Sky Moore, and then the other guys sitting there. A lot of you are screaming for defensive back. Specifically, not really safety. You kind of got safety covered with Thornhill and with Justin Reed, at least for the next couple of seasons. So we're looking really strictly, basically, at a guy who can flat out cover. We're not so much looking at a physical safety hybrid. We're basically looking at a real legit cover guy. And there's not a whole lot of them sitting here at 29 and 30, but there's some solid guys here at 29 or 30. If Kansas City wants to just stay at 29 and 30 and see who falls to them there, they should have their pick of solid defensive backs. And that may include Kaiir Elam, who's looks like a reasonably promising defensive back. Not the best of the group, but a pretty solid defensive back. Daxton Hill, a lot of names have been associated with that, but to me, Daxton Hill is more of a safety nickelback hybrid. I don't think Daxton Hill at the NFL level is going to have success covering the big NFL wideouts. I have a hard time envisioning that. So if you like Kaiir Elam, great. You should have a chance at him at 29 or 30. Now, if you like Andrew Booth, I don't think he's going to be there at 29 or 30. I know some of the mocks have him there, and I know some people don't really love Andrew Booth. I think there's enough people who love Andrew Booth to where if Kansas City likes him, they need to trade up for him. Excuse me a second. Andrew Booth, the cornerback out of Clemson. There's enough people in the NFL who like Booth. I don't think he's there at 29 or 30. There again, if you like Booth or if you like Trent McDuffie from Washington, another good cornerback, if you like either of those two guys, I think you're going to have to trade up to get him. And I know some people are religiously against trading up, but sometimes it's the right move. Would I want to do it every year and be aggressive every year and just throw away my draft picks every year? No, I don't want to do that. But if you like Booth, I think you're going to have to trade up to get him. Maybe somewhere around pick 23, 24, 25. Hard to say. If you like Trent McDuffie, I think you're probably going to have to trade somewhere in the top 15 or 16 to get him. So that's going to be a little more expensive. But that's an option. That would really help, in theory, that would really help bolster up your cornerbacks. But Kansas City may not like those guys enough to trade up. So you're sitting there at 29 and 30, and you're like, gee, you know, I like Kaiir Elam. I hope he lasts all the way. Good chance he will, but hope he does. Do you like Daxton Hill? Yeah, but he's more safety hybrid. Not sure we need that. Do you like Lewis Sine? Yeah, but he's a safety. Not sure we need that. Okay, so that's going to kind of eliminate. You have limited options there at 29 and 30. If you like defensive back, there's a couple of guys that might be there that will help, but I don't think there's anybody coming to you at 29 or 30 that you're like, yeah, that locked up that position. I think there are guys who can contribute and help, but I don't think they're lockdown guys. If you want a good lockdown guy, not even a lockdown guy, if you want a good, what projects to be a good guy with a chance at a Pro Bowl in the NFL at the cover position, you're going to trade up to get him. So that's, again, why 29 and 30, I think you keep one of those positions and you look to trade up off of that. Edge rusher. I know for some of you, you've been screaming edge rusher for 3 seasons now. And can Kansas City win without an edge rusher? Yes. All right, they've done it. They've been doing it. They've been winning without edge rusher. Would they be better with a good edge rusher? Yes, they would be. With Chris Jones sitting right there, with those 2 young linebackers sitting right there, with 2 decent safeties sitting back there, would they be better with an edge rusher? Absolutely. Absolutely. No question about it. So sitting at 29 and 30, what's their edge rusher? There's a very good chance, outside chance, that George Karlaftis may drop all the way down to 29 or 30. Some Chiefs fans don't like him. He's a good, solid defensive end. He'll be a productive, not dominant, he will be a productive defensive end. Is that what you want to come out of this draft with? Yeah, maybe. That might be an upgrade there at defensive end. That's something very much worth considering. Is that going to excite anybody? Probably not. Is he going to just dominate with speed off the edge? Not likely. That's not likely going to happen. Just a good, solid, working defensive end who's solid against the run, who can get to the quarterback, who is smart. That's about what you're getting with George Karlaftis out of Purdue. David Ojabo. Love David Ojabo. Ojabo has a very high ceiling, very fast off the edge. When you watch him at Michigan, and a lot of people gave Ojabo's success, they give credit for that to Aiden Hutchinson over on the other end. But if you watch the tape at Michigan, on the plays where Hutchinson wasn't double teamed, and there were a lot of them, there were a ton of plays where Hutchinson wasn't double teamed, and neither was Ojabo. More often than not, Ojabo was the guy who got there first. And more often than not, Ojabo was running the quarterback over into Hutchinson's side. Now, are you saying that Ojabo is going to be better than Hutchinson? Not necessarily. I'm not. That's not my platform today. Ojabo is very, very quick off that outside edge. Maybe not as quick as Micah Parsons, but he is very quick off that outside edge. and the term project would not be right for him. To say that he hasn't played football for as long as a lot of other guys would be true. To say that he has room to learn and add polish would also be true. But in terms of this guy has ability, this guy can get to the quarterback, this guy can get to the quarterback consistently, this guy can get to the quarterback more often than first than even his counterpart Aiden Hutchinson. And I honestly think Hutchinson last year benefited from Ojabo every bit as much as Ojabo benefited from Aiden Hutchinson. When you go back to the film, you look at it, you see how many times Hutchinson was double teamed versus how many times he wasn't. Especially later in the season, there were a lot of teams that just kind of gave up double teaming either of these guys at all and just looked for a different way to run the offense against Michigan late in the season. Ojabo is the real deal at defensive end in terms of getting to the quarterback, speed. And maybe not as good against the run, but he can get past the tackles on the edge. No question about it. The hiccup with Ojabo is the injury. Can he recover? I think so. Will he get back to full speed and full form? Yeah, I think so. That's probably not going to happen in 2022. Even if he gets back on the field in 2022, which I'm not totally sure will happen. It could, second half of the year. It could happen. You could see David Ojabo back on the field. Even if he does, he's not going to be the full, fast guy that we saw at Michigan. It's going to be 2023. And the question becomes, if I'm sitting there at pick 29 or 30, and I've got 2 or 3 other guys that I like but don't love, do I want to wait a year for David Ojabo to get back up to full speed and in 2023 have maybe the quickest edge rusher we've had in quite a while there at Kansas City? And that's a tough question to answer. I'm not even sure where I come out on that. And I love David Ojabo, flat out love what he can do. And I'm not even sure where I come out on that. So we're exploring our options here. Ojabo is one of them. Now, here's what I don't like at 29 and 30. I don't like Arnold Ebiketie out of Penn State and Boye Mafe. When I look at these two guys, I see guys who they got potential, but to me they look pretty raw. They are not exploding off the film to me, and they still look a little raw. Could they be good defensive ends someday? Absolutely. At 29 and 30, Ebiketie and Mafe, I'm not sure I want to pick those guys at 29 or 30. If they fell to me at pick number 50 by chance, we'll eat it up in a heartbeat. We'll jump on that. But at 29 and 30, not a huge fan of those two guys there. So the other edge rushers, the top guys that everybody wants, they're long gone at 29 and 30. You'd have to trade all the way up to, somewhere in the top 5 or the top 10 to even get a shot at one of those guys. So we're talking about Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeaux and Johnson from Florida State. Those guys are long gone. So I don't think Kansas City is going to be doing any of that, trading up for the edge rushers. They just don't really show the inclination to be doing that. So if you want an edge guy at 29 and 30, there's a chance it's going to be there. I've seen George Karlaftis all over the board. For the most part, I see him mocked higher. I've seen quite a few of him all the way up at, say, 14, 15, 16. But I've seen quite a few other marks where he slides all the way to the end of the first round. So don't rule that out, but I wouldn't count on that. David Ojabo is your best bet here, but the hiccup is probably going to be 2023 before you're seeing any real production out of him. Left tackle, right tackle. I know a lot of you don't think this is a need. I've spent all of last season telling you why I think it is. Even if you like Orlando Brown at left tackle, which I personally don't. I don't hate him. I don't love him. I think he struggles against edge rushers. I think he's a decent run blocker, not great. Even if you like Orlando Brown, the one thing we have to acknowledge is that he's about to sign up for a huge cap hit. Whether it's Kansas City or somewhere else, his cap hit's going to be huge. Already is with that with the franchise tag that they put on him. It's going to stay that way with whatever extension he signs. Even if it's not a big cap hit in 2022 because they signed him to a new deal, it's certainly going to be a large cap hit in 23, 24, 25, maybe 26. It's going to be a very large cap hit, and you're already scrambling for cap space. Do you want to invest it in left tackle Orlando Brown? I personally don't. I would like to see that change. So if we're sitting there at 29 and 30, What's there? Well, really, basically, you're looking at Bernard Raymond out of Central Michigan, who really is more of a right tackle. I'm not sure going to plug him in at left tackle, but he could solve the one right tackle spot. Perhaps you could trade Orlando Brown. This is one reason why I'm going to stick with this Orlando Brown thing. I don't think the trade value on Orlando Brown is very high. I don't know what it would be. I think maybe, I don't know, maybe a third rounder. I'm not sure it's any more than that. It might be less of what an NFL team would give you. I don't think you're going to get a whole lot more than that. I mean, you might pick up a 3 and a 5. I don't know. The point is this. Whether you like Orlando Brown or not, by the time you consider the cap hit that you've got tied up there at left tackle, if you wanted to trade him, could you get a lot for him? And the answer is, well, we could get something for him, probably. But why are we so attached to a player who teams won't give us a lot for? I understand being attached to Tyreek Hill. We got a whole boatload of draft picks for him. We're never going to trade Patrick Mahomes, but if we did, we'd get a whole boatload of draft. We might get a whole first round of draft picks for Patrick Mahomes. Jokingly, I say that. There are guys that everybody else in the league wants and will give you draft picks for. Orlando Brown is not one of those guys. 3 and a 5 might be too rich. I don't know. But the point is this. If you've got a guy at left tackle or anywhere that the NFL isn't going to hand you a lot of draft picks for, maybe you've got a guy at that position who might need an upgrade or who might need a price drop, one or the other. I would be fine with Orlando Brown at left tackle if he was still on a rookie contract and he was making $2 million, $3 million, $4 million a season. I'd be like, whatever, price is right, we'll move on. He's fixing to have a cap hit of somewhere around 15, 17, $19 million, and that's a lot. That's a lot for Kansas City. I'm going to quit beating that dead horse. But let's assume for a second the left tackle is open, right tackle is available. Upgrade neither one for cap reasons or for talent reasons, whatever you want. There's not much there by the time you get 29 and 30. There's not much. Bernard Raymond out of Central Michigan, plug it over at right tackle, and then maybe you put in a journeyman at left tackle and you trade Orlando Brown for what you can get, and you save that cap space and you devote it to maybe somebody in the defensive backs category. I think that would be a better investment. I think that would be a better way to go. If it was me, draft night, I'm trading Orlando Brown, and I'm going to use those picks, even if they're 23 picks, whatever. We're going to use that to spread that around the roster. Okay, that's just me. If you want to trade up, you're going to have to trade all the way into the top 5 to get a guy that you're absolutely in love with. Now, I know a lot of people love Charles Cross. Me personally, and I did a video on this, some of you saw it, some of you didn't, I like Charles Cross as a good starting left tackle in the NFL, but he's the kind of guy I wouldn't probably sign up for that second contract either. I just like him on the rookie deal. I think he'll plug a hole there at left tackle. I don't necessarily think that he would be an upgrade. I think Ikeme Ekwonu from NC State would be an upgrade at left tackle, even in his rookie season. I think Evan Neal, by first or second season, would be an upgrade at left tackle. Price or no price, I think he would be a definite upgrade. Charles Cross, I think, may or may not be an upgrade, but by the time you consider the cap hit, that would help out the Kansas City Chiefs a lot. But man, they'd have to trade up a lot to get Charles Cross. I've seen Charles Cross go as high as recently, say, pick number 9, number 8, but also dropping down to somewhere around 15, 16, 17. So you'd have to trade a good bit up if you like Charles Cross, but I'm not against that. Could you possibly conceivably package Orlando Brown and a couple of other draft picks to a team that would like to have Orlando Brown at left tackle, and then you draft Charles Cross? Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I don't know if Kansas City would want to do that, but that is on the table. That's an interesting thought. The other guy is Trevor Penning. I'm not sure Trevor Penning's really going to be great at left tackle. I know he played that in college, but this is the NFL, and while he's a vicious run blocker, okay, absolutely vicious, I'm not sure that he's going to be fantastic in pass blocking. I think he'll be decent. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll hold down the fort. I think he'll be okay. But that might be second season before he's good at pass protection there at left tackle. All right, so that's what we're looking at, left tackle, right tackle there for Kansas City. Whether I know some of you don't think it's a need at all, but that's fine. Okay, really quick, we're almost done. Thank you for hanging on this video. Defensive tackle. Not a need necessarily. You got Chris Jones there. Derek Notty's coming back. You're not hurting at defensive tackle, but this is something that kind of uncovered itself as we went through our mock draft. If there's a very good chance, very good, some people will scoff at this, there is a decent chance that one of those two defensive tackles from Georgia could slide all the way down to 29 or 30. Is it likely? It's not likely. I think they're both too good to slide that far, but it is possible. Somebody's got to slide. Somebody's got to fall. There's enough good players to where somebody, by the time you consider that people are reaching for quarterbacks, somebody's going to slide to 29 or 30. Defensive tackle, even though it's not necessarily a need for the Chiefs, defensive tackle is one of those spots that you might see a good, talented player slide all the way to 29. And again, I don't think it's going to happen, but it is possible. I'll say this. If Devontae Wyatt or Jordan Davis, and they're probably not going to slide past the Chargers, and they're probably not going to slide past the Bills, and they're probably not going to slide past the other teams. Probably not going to happen. It is possible, though. We've seen crazier things happen. If Devontae Wyatt or Jordan Davis, either one, is sitting there at 29, or if they're sitting there at number 26 and Kansas City wants to trade up to get him, it would be really hard for me to pass up on what I think is a very talented defensive tackle, whether we're talking about the huge Jordan Davis guy or whether we're talking about Devontae Wyatt. Either one of those would be very hard to pass up. Is that likely? Not likely. I get that. Extremely unlikely, but we have to think about possibilities. And there is a possibility that one of those Georgia defensive tackles slides all the way to 29 or 30, and Kansas City gets what we would call a lot of value, right? You would get a very talented player, a top 20 kind of a talent, sitting there at number 29. Not likely to happen, but it would be hard to pass up. It might be hard if they're sitting there at number 25. It might be hard to pass that up and not trade up to, say, Buffalo at number 25 for one of those defensive tackles as well. All right, there's more that I can talk about, but I hit all the major talking points I wanted to do. I will mention this for those of you who are still hanging on. I do a college football podcast called In the Flat with Tony Keel and Jordan Schultz. That comes out every single week. We talk about all kinds of college football. You can catch that on Apple or Spotify if you want to. Also, I don't just have Sports and Money Kansas City anymore devoted to you guys. I've also got Sports and Money Pro Football GM, where I interview a lot of guys about a lot of different things. Sometimes it's X's and O's plays breakdown. Sometimes it is about the draft. Sometimes it's very team specific, and we talk about that. So if you want to slide over to either of those two spots to get the other content, that would be awesome as well. All right, I think I've blah-blahed enough. Thank you so much for listening. Shout out to my mom for listening. Shout out to my sister Rachel for listening. We really appreciate it. Shout out to all of you. And once again, see you next time. Bye.